What it do, guys? It's D'Anthony here, man, aka Hoodscout, back again for another edition of the Hoodscout podcast. And this is really a unique podcast, a podcast like no other. We're going to have athletes, we're going to have coaches, we're going to have intellectuals, we're going to have media members of all sorts. And don't forget, guys, to like this podcast, share this podcast, and help grow this podcast. This is not just my podcast. This is also your podcast. And the only reason it's going to grow is because you guys are going to be invested in it, guys. Sit back, get your beverage of choice ready, get your popcorn ready, get your dinner ready, get your steak ready, get your vegan meal ready. Tune in, guys. Hoodscout. Peace. Hey, what it do, guys? What it do, man? On this episode, this is my interview with defense coordinator Cal Ward from South Oak Cliff High School. This one, I don't have to say too much. Get your notepad ready, get ready. And this is, just really nothing off limits. And I appreciate that because a lot of times, you know, you don't get always the real. This is the real. And it's and you gotta respect the real, whatever spectrum you're on. When anybody's authentic and willing to speak what's true, you gotta respect the guy. So get your notepad out. Share this, like this, man, and because this is a unified effort to grow this thing, very organic as well. So sit back, man, and really listen to these gems from defensive coordinator Cal Ward, who spent time at A&M, spent time at Boise State, spent time at a few schools, but now he's back at South Oak Cliff and been there for some years. Very, very knowledgeable, intellectual guy when it comes to ball and the different things surrounding it. So sit back. Enjoy this one, man. Hoodscout signing out. Peace.
Hey, welcome back to the Hoodscout podcast. Another edition of the Hoodscout podcast. Really, part two of a great conversation that we had in part one. And like I always do, tell my guests to introduce themselves. So, Coach, if the people don't know you, tell them who you are and where you're from.
Kyle Ward, Dallas, Texas. I'm from Dallas. Went to high school at Kimball. Played Louisiana Lafayette. Currently coach at South Oak Cliff High School.
Coach, let's walk up for just the people who may not see part one. Let's talk about your coaching journey, where you started, and let's lead up to SOC. Give me that little journey real quick.
I'll summarize it a lot faster than last time.
Okay.
Just because we've been through it. Started playing football in high school. I think I played my 8th grade year at Atwell High School. Atwell Middle School.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really count it because it was like a superstar studded team.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Started playing at Kimball. Went to Alcorn State as a freshman. Transferred to Louisiana Lafayette my second year. Played football and ran track throughout college, and got a couple of shots on a couple of roster. Couple of teams never made a roster, and ended up coaching high school. Lincoln High School 2 years, West Mesquite High School 2 years, Texas A&M, Johnny Football's last year, Boise State 14 spring, and went back to West Mesquite for a year, and I've been at SOC. Shoot, this was my 7th season. So
okay,
yeah, found somewhere finally. I stuck, and I'm staying put for a while.
Coach, before we get to SOC, I want to say, what do you, looking back on that journey, man? You're a champion now. What do you think them lessons of, West Mesquite and these other schools taught you, if any?
I think a lot of it is what your journey is as a coach. What you're trying to get out of it. Kind of determines what you're gonna get out of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
West Mesquite, being an inner city guy, inner city coach, getting to experience the suburbs, suburb culture, how they do things, negative and positive things. That was a big part of it. Lincoln High School at the time I got there, I learned a lot. It's some stops in your career. You learn what not to do. Nobody ever talks about that. And I try not to go into specifics with that, so I don't throw nobody under the bus, but it's several stops, several situations where I learned how not to do things. College, being at Texas A&M and Boise State back to back was they were total polar opposites from a talent perspective, from a coaching perspective. it was a really, really good experience for me. So, that journey makes you who you are. You appreciate even the bad times, even especially in the bad times, they're
Mhm.
they're happening to strengthen you and make you better. You know what I'm saying?
Now, Coach, when people hear A&M or they hear of Boise State, walk me through that. And we're gonna hit on the SOC. That's gonna be a main part of what we talk about. But what's that college like? I mean, that's big time. At that time, they was that first year in the SEC for A&M?
Second
Second
season.
year. Yeah. So what is that big machine? What is that thing like?
The first thing you notice is support. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of support, especially as a high school guy coming from the inner city. You notice the difference in support. I play small school ball. I say small school, small Division 1A.
Mhm.
It's big time support. Fan base. It matters to them. TV every weekend, especially it was Johnny Football last year. He had just won a Heisman. So just media around everything was a spectacle. It was very different. In hindsight, it's funny. I was telling somebody this during the season. One of the kids asked me something about it. It gets to a point in football where the number of fans or viewers doesn't matter. In the 2 of the last 4 years, we played Alito at SOC. And that game felt just as big, probably bigger than Texas A&M and Alabama. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
People get caught up in the noise. And when I say noise, not literal crowd noise, I'm talking about all the extra stuff. But a big game is a big game, and especially depending on what you're playing for. If Texas A&M beats Alabama, it's not as big a deal as inner city school beating Alito. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, they value that stuff a lot more than we value things where I'm at. And so, big time is our perspective. You know what I mean?
And then right, like I said, we're going to get to SOC. And then Boise State, what was that culture like being? So I mean, you're a Texas kid, way out west. What is that? What is that football and just culture in general like on that West Coast at that time?
It was totally different than what I expected. You hear Boise, you think of potatoes and country, and you know what I'm saying. And it's far from that. It's a pretty big city with a lot of surrounding areas. A true downtown with skyscrapers. You know what I'm saying? It may not be one of the biggest cities in the country. You know what I'm saying? But it's pretty big. And from a football perspective, it's a winning culture. Structure, organization. I learned a lot of a lot of things that will follow me for the rest of my career. And it's a lot of why they've been so successful with less for the last 20 years.
I gotta ask you, Coach. What's one nugget? Give me a nugget. I gotta ask you what's one of those structural nuggets that probably stay with you.
I'll give an example. Structural organization, but even more so, Coach Harsin. He's the head coach at Auburn now. But